Welcome to the Extraordinary Marriage Podcast. And I'm so excited to share with you today Nancy Bonner. Nancy has been a person that I have worked with through the years because she started out as a hairstylist and then she rose up in the ranks of Mary Kay Cosmetics from consultant to sales director to the top of the totem pole. And that was national sales director. But today, Nancy's going to talk a little bit about her marriage and her family and leadership skills that she's learned through the years. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Connie. It's great to be here.
Well, I know we're going to have a good time today, and I appreciated you through the years. As I was not actually in your Mary Kay group, but you actually welcomed me into many of your activities, just like Mary Kay does with the
hmm
adoptee system. But today I want you to share a little bit with me about how many years you've been married and how you and your husband got together.
Okay, well, it's going on 57 years this
Woo!
March. Yeah. And we dated 5 years before that. So we've known each other about 62 years. We're still learning things about each other
Well, you know what I
because
found is that life changes a little bit as we
exactly,
get older and we change. And so,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So we went to opposing high schools.
Mm.
And the year before our 10th grade, we both went to summer school at my high school. And that's where we met.
Mm.
I was there to get ahead, and he was there to catch up.
That's your story, right?
As a matter of fact, we've talked about that. He's like, I don't really know why I was there. And I said, I don't either. I said, why would we want to go to school in the summer? But it was God ordained for us to meet, and we started dating. We had a rocky relationship in the beginning because he was at one school and I was at another, and I had my spies at his school. And so, if he did anything that he shouldn't be doing, then I found out about it. So anyway, we did have a great time during our high school years. And after high school, we both went to college for a while. I went for about a year, and then I was like, this is just really not what I want to do. And so a friend of mine that had been my hairdresser encouraged me to go to beauty school. And so I went to beauty school and got my license. And then we got married. And about a year later, started our family. Our first son, John, was born. And about 3 months later, Bill got drafted. This was during the Vietnam
Mm.
War. And so we had to move out of our house, and I moved back in with my parents, and he went in the Army.
Wow.
And I went back to work at the beauty shop. So um, that was not a fun time, but we did get through it. And 2 years later, Bill got out of the service, and we bought another house. We don't know how we did all these things. It was just a God thing. But
Well, Nancy,
um,
let me ask you. So, I've always wondered how it is whenever you first get married and then your spouse is drafted. That was back in the day where men were drafted. And
mhm.
so, how is that when you have to move out and move with your parents? How long a time was that you went back to live with your parents, and how long were you married before he got drafted?
Well, John was about 3 months old, so we'd been married going on 2 years. And moving back home was a blessing to be able to do that. But my mom got cancer when I was in high school,
Mm,
and it was about a 10-year span that she battled it and then finally passed away.
mm.
But she was home and had was sick. And then my grandmother had to move in with us. And so it was it was tough. But like when I think about it now, I just think, gosh, I don't know how I did that, because um, our oldest son, John, he never slept. And so I would be up all night and then get up and go to work. And the other thing was finding somebody to keep him while I was working. And so I had different people that helped me, but then because he cried a lot, they didn't want to keep him.
I can imagine that. So what I'm hearing is while you were at your
Uh,
mom's, did you have a baby while your husband was gone?
yeah, he was 3 months old.
Oh my
When when
goodness.
John was 3 months old, Bill got drafted. So
Wow.
me and the baby, John, went back home, and all this other stuff was going on at my parents' house. But bless their hearts, they took us in and helped us as much as they could. My dad was still working a full-time job at the railroad, and as I said, mom was sick with cancer, and my grandmother had to move in, and it was just back then you did what you had to do. And so I think that helped me in when I did get into the Mary Kay business. I think that helped me because to me that was much easier than having to punch a clock and be at the beauty shop and work long hours and not know who was going to keep John and all these other things. So anyway, but while I was working at the shop, um, John was now 2 years old, and Bill had just gotten back out of the service, and we were starting all over again. Bill's high school coach's wife became a customer of mine at the hair salon, and she got recruited into Mary Kay, and she's the one that introduced me to Mary Kay and became my director. Um,
Hmm.
uh, so anyway, that's
And was Bill still gone when you started Mary Kay?
no, he had just gotten back, but we
Yeah.
had one car, and we were starting all over. Had to get another place to live, and he had to get a job, and there were a lot of challenges,
I call that
but
a lot of hurdles to overcome. You're with him leaving, you're just married, you have a new baby, your mom's sick. Although I do see the fact that it gave you some extra time with your mom being
yeah,
there. And sometimes we see things in retrospect and after the fact and the hardship, we look back. And I think some people are able to find the silver lining a little easier than others when they look back
right.
on tough situations.
And I mean, when I talk about it, I'm like, gosh, that was hard. But when I was living it, I was just doing what you do. We were just moving forward, trying to survive and make the best out of the situation. So, anyway, we had our second son, Jason. I left the beauty shop. I was already in Mary Kay. Um, all these different things, Connie. Bill had supported me in them, but he didn't do it for me. He,
No.
ele- you know, I he encouraged me, but he was also building his career, finishing college. Um, I mean, the story could go on and on, but it was for the first 10 years of having our children. The first 8 years of having our children, I was in Mary Kay. So I had John when I started, then I had Jason, then I had Josh when I went for directorship, and then I had Jonah after we made a move to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so there have been a lot of different phases that we've worked through, but the whole time our marriage was the number one thing that we knew we had to keep working on, because you don't want to have four boys to raise by yourself.
Mm-mm. No way, Jose.
So we just kept encouraging each other and uh, praying for each other and praying with each other. And I will have to say that both of us accepted Christ when we were young, but we didn't. Neither of us understood the lordship of Christ, and so that move to Chattanooga opened a door for us, in that a lady came to call on me to welcome me to Chattanooga, who invited us to church. And at Red Bank Baptist Church, both of us recommitted our life and understood that everything we had and do belongs to God. And that's what turned things around. That he has to be the Lord of our life if we're going to be successful at anything. So that
Nancy, what I hear in that is that so often a foundation, a firm foundation, a firm
mm-hmm,
set of values and beliefs, and having the same values and beliefs. And sometimes couples don't have that in
right,
common.
right.
And so that causes a little bit of a clashing. So, how many years had you been married? I'm making you remember everything today, aren't I? How many years you been married when you moved to Chattanooga? And how many babies did you have?
Well, we had 3 boys when we moved to Chattanooga, but I had just become a director, so I really didn't want to move. But Bill took a
Mm.
job there, and it was a great opportunity for him. And he had always supported me in me pursuing the things I wanted to do. And so I'm like, gosh, when that moving van comes, I need to be on it with those boys. And so we had our 4th son after we moved to Chattanooga.
Wow. And so what I hear on that is that you had to move, and being that I was a sales director in Mary Kay, but Nancy, like I said, rose to national sales director. But here she is with her kids, and she is a director, and she had her community of people in her area that she lived.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the day before cell phones and
Right.
computers and Zoom like we're doing right now, and doing this. It was the day that you had to do long distance phone calls. We have to really go back and think
Yeah.
about the conveniences that we have today. And so you didn't know
The phone
anybody.
was attached to the wall.
Oh, yeah, with the cord. I remember that. And so often we forget to really give thanks for the things and the
Mm-hmm.
conveniences and for people. So here you had moved far away and you had to kind of restart your business, although you still had to nurture, send out newsletters, do something to communicate with those people in
Oh, yeah.
another state
Yeah.
at the same time. So how about your boys as they came along, and your husband? Was he home, much in the
No,
evenings or?
well, Bill has been in the real estate business for a long time, and most of it has been in the commercial business. And he's worked for different companies and been their real estate director. And so it required him to do a lot of traveling. So that was another thing. He would be gone. I would be there uh, trying to start my business. I mean, the balance, Connie, I think that's what women struggle with is okay, if I'm going to have a career and I'm going to have a family and I'm going to
Mhm.
have a husband, how do I balance all this?
Absolutely.
And I'll just have to say that it was a constant thing for me to reassess really on a weekly basis of okay, if I'm going to spend this much time doing this, that means I'm not going to have the time to do this. And I think one thing is I learned to say no to things
Mm,
that if it didn't get me to my goal, or if it didn't help my family,
mm.
the family goal, because that's another thing that Bill and I learned to do. And a lot of this, as I said earlier to you, a lot of this things that we've learned for our marriage came from the things we learned in Mary Kay.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we learned is that you've got to sit down and communicate what each of you are trying to accomplish. And then, okay, how does our family fit into this? What's our family goal? How does that look? What do we want for our children? What do we want for each other? And what do we want as a team? Because we are a team.
Mm.
And as long as my children were under our roof, we were a team. And um, we were responsible for their growth and their nurturing and all that. But with 4 boys, the 2 of us couldn't be at everything. And so we had to, first of all, let them pick and choose things that they really wanted to do, and not try to have them into everything just because other people had their kids into 10 different sports.
Not
And
keeping
some
up
of
with the
them,
Joneses,
yeah,
right?
and some of them didn't even want to be in a sport. And so that was fine too. And so anyway, we worked on, okay, well, if you can be at this, I can be at this. And then sometimes it would be like, okay, guys, we can't be at everything. So John's the oldest, it's his senior year. We're focusing more on him this year. Next year be your turn, you know. And my kids would say, Mom, it's okay. You don't
Oh,
have to be at everything. And so, because they knew where my heart was,
right.
and they knew it just wasn't a possibility to be at everything. And so, anyway, my whole thing about raising our boys was we wanted to continue to promote a relationship among them, the 4 of them. So when we would go on vacations and things, we didn't let them bring other people with them, because we knew if they brought a friend, they wouldn't spend the time with with each other. And
Mhm.
so today, what brings me so much joy is when we get all of our family together. There's 20 in our family now, in our immediate family, because we have 7 grandchildren. We have 2 granddaughter-in-laws and 1 great grandbaby
Oh
that's
my
a year old.
goodness. Mm.
So that has added on to our family. But one of my greatest joys is to see our boys when they see each other, even the ones that live here, embrace and
Mm.
hug, and when they get ready to leave, do the same thing, say I love you. I mean, that is what we have worked on our whole married life, is nurturing that family unit. And I think it also starts with you. Bill and I are affectionate. We're affectionate in not overdone, but we're affectionate around our children and our grandchildren. And we tell them we love them all the time. They tell us. We tell each other we love each other. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have had issues. We've had financial problems. We've had issues with, what I want to do versus what he wants to do. Um, we've had all those things, but we we were too stubborn, I guess, to not work through that. And if I'm feeling upset about something, I'm just going to go to Bill and say, you know what, we need to talk. If he's feeling upset about something, he'll do the same thing with me. And we sit down and we air out our grievances. Um, our kids get tickled at us because sometimes we air our grievances out a little more than what they think we should. And
In front of
then
them?
then we turn right around and we start, laughing at each other, hugging each other, you know. And so they think that's well. One daughter-in-law, her family didn't do that,
Mhm.
and so when it first started, when she was first, subjected to us, voicing our opinion at one another, she was like, "Oh my gosh, are they mad?" And then the next thing, we would be hugging and kissing. So, obviously everybody's family dynamics are different, their personalities are different, but I think that, something that we've learned is communication. Got to communicate how you're feeling, um, trying to look at the other person's situation, where they're coming from. It's like, if I'm so busy looking at the speck in Bill's eye that I can't see the plank in mine, then we're not going to resolve the issue.
I think a lot of
And
that goes into godly values and that good foundation. And if you think about your parents, Nancy, and you think about Bill's parents, probably there was some kind of well balanced foundation in that, or at least one parent was a great communicator, because when you don't tell what's bothering you, it festers.
exactly, exactly. And how's the other person going to know what your needs are if you don't express that?
That's right.
And,
Can't read
and
minds.
so, yeah. And so, a lot of marriage, in my opinion, is you have to be willing to do a little listening and a little research. And just like, do you know what your husband's love language is?
Yes.
Most husbands' love language is touch, is physical touch. And that's what my husband is. And so all I have to do is reach over and touch him if he's driving or whatever. And he was like, that feels so good for you to touch.
Togetherness.
Exactly. Exactly. And I appreciate the fact that he takes care of himself health wise, that he gets exercise, that he cares about his appearance. Um, and that I've growing up in Mary Kay, that I didn't go to the mailbox without my makeup on. And I know some women don't agree with that, and and
I
they feel like, well, I should just be able to look any way I want to. But I learned early on that when Bill was in the business world, he was seeing women in at their best. At least they used to be
That's
that. It
true.
used to be that way.
Mhm.
And I didn't want him coming home to somebody that looked like they even though I had 4 kids hanging off of my leg or whatever, and one on my hip, I didn't want him to come home to somebody that looked haggard and tired and didn't feel like I didn't feel like getting dressed. I didn't feel like getting my makeup on. I didn't feel like doing my hair. So that has just always been something I've strived for, to look nice for him.
Okay, Nancy. So I'm going to ask you this because I'm one of those people who, when I first started Mary Kay, well, I wore sweatpants and a sweatshirt to shopping. And, I had little kids and I was tired and I didn't really pay attention to that stuff. And then I started Mary Kay. I looked at the people around me and I'm like, oh, now before we got married, I dressed to the T. I was always fixed up. But I have to say, even now, confession is like, if I don't go out the door, I'm kind of bad. I have this wild curly hair, and you're a hairdresser, wild curly hair. And often, if I haven't looked at me in the mirror, I forget what I look like. So one day, I was like running my hands through my hair because I kind of had a headache and I was thinking about something. Next thing I know, I walked in front of a mirror and I was like, whoa. Because this hair gets real big, if I'm running my fingers through it. So I was really not a person that fixed up too much. So I'm going to ask you, so did you actually get up every morning and do yourself up?
I still do.
Wow. That's a great
When
quality.
I play tennis 3 mornings a week. And when I get to the tennis court, they all are like, oh my gosh, you're all fixed up. I'm like, this is how I look every day. And I had a birthday Tuesday and I was 76, or I am 76,
Happy
not
birthday.
I was. I am. For a whole year. For a whole year. Anyway, and so yesterday when I got to the tennis court, I was playing tennis with 3 other women, and one is kind of new. And the people on the other court said, hey, Nancy, we see you had a birthday, blah, 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 And so I just mentioned when we were talking, that I just turned 76. Well, the new person we were playing with, she's like, oh my gosh, I thought you were about my age. Well, she's probably like 50 something. I'm like, no, honey, I am not your age. I could be your mother, But anyway, and because of that, I've had Michelle come and do facials with them and all that stuff, because they're all like, well, we want to look like that, But I mean, that's just something I've always done, and if I didn't do it, I would feel like, uh-oh, I'm on my way out,
Well, I do remember whenever I was at home with little kids and actually saying that to my husband, even though I still don't fix up when he's whenever I'm not going anywhere. But I remember saying to him, now just remember that all those ladies who are fixed up at work, they look just like me in the morning when they wake up.
Well, if he leaves and you look like that, you better make sure when he comes back home, you don't look like that.
Okay, so Nancy, I'm going to start doing better right today, right now.
And let me tell you, your family appreciates it too, because my boys they still compliment me on, they let me know, what they like. And Bill compliments me every single Sunday morning when we're going to church, because that's when we are in the same car going to the same place. Every single Sunday morning, he compliments me on how I look. And that just encourages me to want to keep looking that way.
Yeah. And, grandkids are real honest. And I've had grandkids go,
oh yeah,
Nana, are you feeling okay? And I'll be like, oh, I just don't have any makeup on.
do we need to call the doctor and get you to the hospital?
Didn't have any makeup on. All right. So awesome. You know what? Everything that you've shared so far is like so very true to great relationships and communication. And I love it where you're talking about teamwork. In Mary Kay, we talked about teamwork, but the main thing is no matter what your team does at work, it is that foundation at home and working together as a team and looking for those challenges, hunting through things, talking and communicating. And everybody doesn't do that quite as much as others. But Nancy, I'm going to take a guess because, I teach the DISC communication styles, and I'm going to take a guess. Like that I'm a fun loving person. I'm going to take a guess that you also are a fun loving person, right?
Well, my whole thing is if it's not going to be fun, why do I want to do it?
Absolutely. I got to find some fun
If
in
it's
most
something, yeah,
everything.
if it's something that you don't really want to do, you need to make it fun. If you make it fun, of course, what we should be doing is doing it as unto the Lord. And if we have to work through a situation that we're not looking forward to, we still need to think about, but I have to work at this as unto the Lord. And that kind of can change your perspective. But in our family, it's almost like a contest to see who's the funniest Bonner among our family.
That works.
And
That's fun.
so our whole family dynamic is jokesters and make it fun. And you asked me earlier before we started the recording, what am I doing, these days? And part of what I'm doing is I'm in charge of planning all the family activities. And my oldest grandson called me from Florida to wish me happy birthday. And he said, Mimi, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate all the time and effort you put into getting our family together.
It
He said,
matters.
because it does matter. And he said, it's so much fun to be with you. And another thing that I was going to share is that as a couple, when you're raising your family, a lot of your focus is on your family, but you have got to stay focused on your spouse because your kids are going to grow up and hopefully leave. And you don't want to turn around and go, oh, who are you? And what are we going to do now? Because if you haven't nurtured that relationship while your kids are growing up, don't expect spouse to be like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. So Bill is a golfer. I didn't take up golf because that just took too much time. I did take up tennis, so we have that in common. We both have taken up pickleball, so we can do that if we're not doing it with somebody else, or we can do it with another couple. We play cards. We like to go to movies. I mean, you have to come up with things that you can do as a couple after your family. Yes, you're doing things with your family, but there has to be a time. If you, especially if you've got small children, you've got to have a date night.
I agree.
Yeah. And so you have to put that into your schedule. And even if you don't have a lot of extra income, there are a lot of things you can go and do that don't even cost any money. It's just spending time away from your children and focusing on each other.
So Nancy, let me ask you about date night, because I know that's one of the things I say now, although it's all good. My kids are grown and I have grandkids and we're doing well too. But that is one of the things that my husband and I did not do, because I would not hardly leave my kids. And then I was real pinchy on money. So some of the things that we did do, didn't cost anything. And we did it with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So did y'all do date night through the years?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's
We
important.
well, and see, with Bill traveling and with my Mary Kay business, of course, I could pick and choose when I was going to do something, but I still had to work a certain amount to. Originally, my goal was to make $50 a week, because that making $50 extra a week was going to give us not extra income, but enough to pay some bills. Like,
Gotta pay
I
the
didn't start
bills.
K just for frivolous extra money. I started it to put food on the table and gas in the car and that kind of thing. And then, of course, as I became more and more successful at it, I had bigger goals. But it got to the point of where Bill did not want to continue the driving and the traveling and that kind of thing. And all the boys were still at home and they were all in school. And I just said, I'll work twice as much at my Mary Kay business if you'll just quit your job and then do whatever it is that you want to do. And so that gave him the opportunity to start his own business. And then we moved back to the Atlanta area, had to regroup here and in Fayette County, had to start meeting people and so forth. And so that way he and I both could have a schedule that worked together. We
So
didn't
what
have to opposing schedules.
so what I'm hearing is that this is a point whenever you were making a lot of money in Mary Kay. And
Yes,
so you said, "Hey, honey," like, and that way he could work as an entrepreneur, right? And work
right,
his own schedule. He's still working, but he's working his own schedule. So now you can like juggle the kids a little easier than both being a 9 to 5 job, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
9 to 5
everybody
didn't work.
didn't know that about you. Nancy actually, as a national sales director in Mary Kay, she had, I don't know, Mary, let's go ahead and share it, right? How many pink cars, how many diamond rings and prizes? Oh my gosh, right?
Well, our first car was earned in 1982, I think, and I've never had a car payment after that. No, it was
Woo.
only pink Cadillacs, and of course still have the last one that I was given at the end of my career. So depending on how many years at the time we were keeping the cars, I had 15, but it was like every other year. And then when we got the Escalades, it was every 3 years. So anyway, I haven't had a car payment since 1982, I think it is.
Well, and diamond rings. And we were talking right before we started today about the fact that, woo, look at the jewelry. Yeah, man. And we were talking before we started today about literally how much training and stuff that Mary Kay did, and that like for me, I was a sales director, and we don't realize how much we're given in Mary Kay until we don't have it anymore. That education and all that is expensive. So, but you have a lot of leadership skills from Mary Kay, and you said you were using them at your church for, to help organize and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. But all through the years, literally your Mary Kay has propelled you in all different directions. But let me ask you another question as we're getting close to the finish today. Because you made so much money and you helped so many other people make money. Google says that the main problems with marriages today is communication. And you've covered a lot of stuff on that. And it sounds familiar to me because we have a lot of that ourselves. And we propel that when we live it and we stop and think about what our family needs or what our relationship needs. We live it, our kids catch it because they catch
Mm-hmm.
more than what we say. It's like we got to
Mm-hmm.
do it if they're going to catch it. But the second thing that Google says is a big problem in marriage is money. And that could be lack of money. Typically, that's usually what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's having a lot of money. So, what would you say when it comes to marriage and money and all that kind of stuff and your kids? What would you say? Any advice on money?
Well, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was while we were in Chattanooga, and it was after Bill and I recommitted our life that we made the decision that we were going to tithe no matter what. And a lot of people say, "Well, I would tithe if I had the money." Well, you have to tithe, and then you'll have the money. And
That works.
so, of course, and I worked on, as you know, we worked on commission. So someone asked me one time, they said, well, do you tithe on your commission or after all of your expenses and all that? And I said, well, it depends on how much you want to be blessed. But
Ooh,
I said, I tithe on the original commission, whatever that commission is, that's what I tithe on. And Bill is the same way. And I think that once you realize that whatever money and whatever blessings and whatever things and all this that you have, it's all belongs to God, and it's all a result of his blessings. And so when you look at it like, okay, he's 90%, he's letting, he's saying, here's 90%, do what you want to with it. And of
that's the way
course,
to look at
10%,
it.
10% is just the beginning. But when you look at, okay, 90%, he says, do whatever you want to, but 10% minimum needs to go towards, and of course not everybody's a member of a church,
Yeah,
but
I was
that's
thinking
where my
that.
tithe goes to. But then also I'm able to help in other areas and help other ministries. And I mean, if you've got that giving spirit, God's going to bless it. And so you just have to, you either trust him with your money, with everything, or you don't.
Mm. That's
And
true because, you know, a lot of times people trust God with everything, but not their money, right?
yeah, yeah. And of course
Yeah.
it's not their money. It's not our money. However, I know when I was, holding Mary Kay parties and all that in the early days, there would be ladies who would be like, "Oh, well, I really need to talk to my husband to see if I can buy this skincare." And I'm thinking, gosh, I hope I never have to ask my husband if I can get something to clean my face, or if I can buy deodorant, or if I can buy toothpaste, or whatever personal items, that I need.
Mhm.
And so we had to work out what worked for us financially, and that was me having my business account, me having my personal account, him having his business account, him having his personal account. And then we also had to determine what all I was going to take care of financially, and then what all he was going to take care of financially. And so in the beginning, Mary Kay took care of groceries and any of my expenses and all that. Well, anything the kids needed, uh, all of those things, family vacations, Christmas, uh, house payment, car. Well, I didn't have a car payment, so I didn't have that. But anyway, those were things that I committed to, and then Bill took care of everything else. So while I was building my business and paying all these things, Bill was able to invest in real estate and build up for basically his retirement. And so we didn't have all of our eggs in one basket, I guess I would say. But you know, we have to trust one another with the money, because if he's going to ask me, if I walk in with a new pair of shoes or whatever, and he's going to say, "Oh, how much did those cost?"
Mm.
Well, then what happens with a lot of women, they just start not telling. It's like, well, I'm not going to let him know. Like they'll get something new and hang it in the closet for 6 months, and then when they pull it out to wear, and your husband says, "Oh, is that new?" You go, "Oh no, I've had it. I've had this for six. I've had this for 6 months."
Now you had to tell a story.
Yeah. So we also, but if it's something major, we don't ever go out and do something crazy without sitting down and talking through it. And I've learned with my husband that there are a lot of things he talks about that he is not going to do. Like
Mm.
he'll be looking at cars, and I'm like, "Oh, you're looking at cars?" "Yeah, I'm looking at Corvettes." I'm like, "Okay."
Mm.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about buying one." Well, my carnal nature is like, "Are you crazy? You are not buying a Corvette. You're 76 years old. You're not buying a Corvette."
He's thinking
Uh,
out loud. I do that too.
exactly. But now I've learned he's not going to buy a Corvette. And I just go, "You know what? You'd probably look good in one." I mean, you just have to go with it. Now, if he really went out there and I saw he was really serious, then I'd sit down and have a talk with him. But so many arguments can be um, prevented if we wouldn't take everything so seriously.
Mm.
And like sometimes he'll say, "Well, I think we ought to just go on a cruise. Let's do one of these around the world cruises." I said, "Well, how long
Mm.
would that take?" "Oh, it's 3 months." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do that." And in my mind, I'm thinking, have you lost your mind? We're not going to stay away from our kids for 3 months. you know,
And you know what? I say things like the different stuff too, not quite that big. And my husband's like, "Well, when would you like to do that?" Because he is the person who let's put it on let's put it on the calendar. And I'm like, I'm
yep.
still thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, see,
Still thinking.
I'm like him. I'm like, okay, well, when do we want to do it and where do we want to go? And let me start planning that. And of course, a lot of that came from my Mary Kay business. And like, okay, Connie, if you said, "Well, I want to become a director," I'd be like, "Well, when do you want that to happen?" And then I would say, "Okay, well, then we need to back that up to here. And then today you need to start doing so and so." So that's my nature. I'm like, okay, if that's what you want, then let's make it happen.
And you know
And
what?
it would,
We often get what we expect. So
well,
since
yeah,
you
yeah.
expected those women when they said, I want to be a director, you expected them to, hey, let's figure out
I
how we're
thought
doing it. Let's
that
get it
was
going.
the truth.
That's right.
I thought they meant it.
And sometimes we mean to mean things, but we're still thinking or we're wishing or we're wanting or that kind of thing.
Yeah. Of course, sometimes not thinking about something for very long gets me in trouble too.
Spontaneous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But also what I love about our life now is we can be spontaneous. And, if we decided that we want to get up tomorrow and drive down to Panama City, which is where our youngest son and his family live, um, we could do it because we're not tied to a job. And we, even though we do have other commitments, we could still work things out. So I think it's just the knowing that you have that freedom,
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel good. It's like if you knew that, oh, well, I only have 2 weeks and it's going to be next year before I can use it, that would drive me crazy.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to share something, Nancy, and then I'm going to let you wrap it up with 5 things that you think are most important in marriage. So you could think about that for a second. But what I want
Okay.
to share is Nancy is the last week of November, and this is our launching month for the Extraordinary Marriage podcast. So I thank you for listening on that. And during this time, there's a contest going on. And so if you listen to all 7 of the podcast for November by the last day and email me, Connie at The Extraordinary Marriage, then your name's going to go into a drawing. Simple as that. And there are 3 ways that you can win. The first one is every person that emails me all 7 code words. Nancy's is jewels. Nancy's word
Oh,
is
yeah.
jewels. All those jewels she got in Mary Kay. She got lots of jewels, real jewels. All right. So her word for is jewels. And so when you email me all 7 words from all 7 episodes, your name goes into a drawing for my discovering work and family dynamics. It's where I teach communication skills and you actually get an assessment. It's an online course. You get that free if your name is drawn. The second way you can win is the first 7 people that email me are going to get my 10 days to a happier, healthier marriage. Because guess what? Sometimes nobody's exemplified how to have a happy marriage and we don't even know how. And so here's a little bit of help and one concept that will help you. So 7 people that email, first 7 are going to get that free. And then the very first person that emails all 7 of those code words is going to get a free 1-hour coaching session with me where we talk about your communication style and maybe some challenges and some ways that you can make that better in your marriage. So make sure you listen to all 7. Write down those words and email me, Connie at The Extraordinary Marriage. All right. So, Nancy, as we finish up today, it's been a delight talking with you. I knew it would be. And share with us, what are 5 things that you think make a great marriage? What are 5 things maybe that made yours great or just that you think that make a great marriage?
Well, in thinking about that, I think, first of all, I really like Bill as a person.
Yes.
I mean, he, I would want him to be my friend if I wasn't married to him.
Okay. I'm going to say you got to like your spouse and they got to be your friend. They got to be your best friend, right?
Right. And he is my best friend. I would rather spend time with him than anybody else. Um, the second thing is, I think that you have to have some love. You have to really show your spouse love every single day. You can't assume. It's not like the man that said, well, I told you I loved you when we got married, and if that changes, I'll let you know. 20 years later, he's never said it again. I think that you need to always tell your spouse how important they are to you, how much you appreciate them, how much you love them, and respect. Men really need respect.
Ooh,
And
that's
I know,
another story. Yes.
I know that there are times like if I say something to Bill like, there's 2 bags of trash in the pantry, I mean in the back room, in the washroom. Um, do you think you'll be, getting those out anytime soon? Well, to him, I just said, well, you're not doing your job.
Ooh,
You haven't taken the trash out. And so you have to think about what are you saying to your spouse, and is everything you're saying having a negative connotation?
mm,
Two things that I have to repent of on a regular basis is a critical spirit
mm.
and a controlling attitude.
I might do
And
that too.
yeah, and so I think not being critical of one another and not being controlling. Like sometimes I want to run my family like I ran my national area in,
Ooh, like a drill sergeant. No,
yeah, like a drill sergeant. And of course, I had to be that way when I was home with 4 boys by myself. I had to be a drill sergeant. But
absolutely.
anyway, I think we have to be careful about that. I think having a forgiving attitude. I took a course not too long ago called Forgiving Forward, and it's just realizing that if if you want to have any kind of relationship with somebody that you have an issue with, you have got to forgive them. And of
Absolutely.
course, honey, if you're gonna forgive me, I definitely need to forgive you, and think about all that God has forgiven us, all the things we've done, that he's already forgiven us all that,
Right.
past, present, and future, if we're followers of Jesus Christ. And so having a forgiving attitude, and letting your spouse know that, hey, I blew it. I shouldn't have said that. Please forgive me, and mean it. And so
Absolutely.
I think that forgiveness is really, really important. And I think back to that thing of us doing finding something that you can do with your spouse. Um, I know I have friends that they're like, oh, well, my husband doesn't like to do anything. I like to shop and he likes to watch TV. Well, how fun is that? I mean, you may have to work on that, but come up with some things that you can do that will be fun. Because if there's no fun in your marriage, why does somebody want to be married to you?
And be open minded.
And then I think too, and
Go
as you get older, you need to be open to new things.
Yeah, and you
I
froze
think
up for a
there,
second, I think, Nancy. You're
yeah,
you're good now. But being
yeah,
open-minded and expecting that you can find some things together instead of being closed-minded and saying those words, power of words. We don't have anything in common. You never do anything with me. It's important to be open-minded and look for solutions instead of just saying what you don't want. Talk about what you do want, right?
right. And I think one more thing is that we didn't really talk about, and that is, I think that you need to constantly be growing, be trying to improve both spouses. Um, in other words, if I'm going to grow and just and develop some new things and learn some new things, then I'm going to encourage my spouse to do the same thing,
Personal
because
growth.
I'm sure you've heard the term that, well, we just outgrew each other.
Mhm.
That's why we're not together anymore. And basically, what that's saying is that I, I decided I want to do new things and improve myself and all that, but my spouse didn't. And so my spouse is still just like, back in the day. And here I'm really with it now. I have learned new things and developed myself more. And so I think that that's important.
Okay, so there was a little gurgling, like you were freezing up a little bit, and so that last
We
thing that
keep
Nancy
freezing
was,
up. You're freezing up.
I'm freezing up. I'm not sure which one's recording on my screen, but it is a personal growth. And so Nancy was saying as she was finishing that personal growth is so important that maybe you're growing and that he's growing in whatever direction of, but still coming together in the middle, right? personal growth and learning new things. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. We've had a really good time. We had a little gurgling right as we were finishing today, but hey, it was just a tiny bit. So I just thank you for our listeners for listening today. Be sure and go back and view all the different podcast episodes that have been on. And I hope that everyone finds something that encourages them or lifts them up, or ways to communicate better with their spouse. And Nancy, you've done a great job today, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
Hope you have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.